You're listening to SportsSkope with your host, Robert Butler, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to SportsSkope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. Going to talk about this Brett Reed nepotism issue and how much more bad it looks. The fact that it is a coach's son and it's an ongoing problem in the NFL. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, big local reporter there, changing his tone a little bit, calling for the team to move on from Watson in Houston. And also Alex Smith, talk about him. The Ravens taking a different approach with going to wide receivers. Get into that. Other NFL news and notes as things start to break. As we're getting closer to free agency, everybody, free agency starts, Pickles, everybody, on the 17th, but by the 15th of March, which is essentially 2 weeks from today, we'll know who's going to go where. Legal tampering is allowed. So we'll get into all that as much as I can. I mean, everything has been breaking. It's hard to keep up with everything. But first, let me tell you about Alternite. Alternite's a nonprofit funded by Tolik Bortz out of Brooklyn, New York area. Received support or partnered with New York Ranger hockey team, former Ranger legends Mark Messier, Adam Graves, Ron Duguay, WFAN's Boomer Esiason, the most legendary local sports talk station in the country. These guys provide humanitarian and educational services to underserved communities. For example, pay fees for youth to play sports, also provide equipment. They help out in the music and arts fields as well. For more information on how to donate or request help for a youth, please contact www.alternite.com. That is ALTRUNITE.com. Or you can call them at 917-775-4005. Tell them Robert from SportsSkope sent you. Alternite, good people doing a good thing. Okay, a lot's happened in the last just 24 hours or so. J.J. Watt, former Deshaun Watson's teammate, signs with the Arizona Cardinals. He does go back to an old defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph. I get it. Former teammate recruited him to Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins had a little brain cramp there for a second. So I kind of see that, And but my thing that really gets me, that was, for one thing, I'll get to that in a little bit more detail, but it also tells me how bad things were in Houston. But I'm correlating that to this story. John McClain, long time Houston reporter, 30, 40 years. Seriously, this guy's covered Earl Campbell, the early Houston days. He's now saying that Houston, he has changed his tune over the last few weeks. He's saying now he thinks Houston should trade Deshaun Watson. The Houston Chronicle, yeah, he's been around for a long time. I've listened to him. He comes on local sports talk show stations here in Nashville, talks a lot about the Titans and everything. So that got me thinking, because Houston still dug in. They've got a new coaching staff. This guy that they brought over from Baltimore is an older, opposite of Bill O'Brien. He's the opposite, very easygoing, very likable. Older guy, very calm, kind of guy that I think they could wear on a good side. A guy like Deshaun Watson, these guys have made a lot of salary cap moves. They're under the cap. They have cap room now. But I got to thinking, these guys are not employees. It's a contractor. So these are independent contractors, these NFL players. Why don't they have an out clause? Why can't you buy out your own contract, just like they can cut you and get but there's a penalty. It's called dead cap money. So this is my solution for the collective bargain agreement going forward. Now, hear me out, everybody. I'm not talking about drafted players to the NFL. I live in a small market by all means. Now, we're growing. Nashville, Tennessee is growing at a very highly paced, but it's still considered a smaller market. So the smaller market teams are built on the draft. They need those players right for 7 years, 5 to 7 years. They get the 5th-year option. They can do 2 franchise tags. So these smaller markets, Green Bay, Tennessee, Jacksonville, even in Kansas City is not really considered a big market. They won the Super Bowl. So they need the ability to hang on to players. But when a player gets in their second contract, that player should have the right to buy out of his own contract. In other words, like, for instance, if Deshaun Watson is traded tomorrow, some of his cap money is still on the record with Houston for this year. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I don't write the CBA. It's over my head. But if they cut Deshaun Watson, I'm just saying, even if Atlanta cuts Matt Ryan, hypothetically, it's a $59 million cap hit. So, for instance, if you read these contracts, which I do, go on Sport Track and read, they're like, these players are essentially, they can, if they're cut after a certain year, there's a certain amount of dead cap money. That money goes down the closer it gets towards the end of that contract. It's very high. It could be up to $60, $70 million if it's a big quarterback contract. So my thing is, if a guy wants out so bad, you can buy out your contract, but you have to pay that back. Now, how would that work? The new team that you go to, if you're traded, that team would have to take that cap hit, and they would pay your team back, and your team is credited that cap space. And, of course, whatever draft compensation you get. If that contract is, say, for instance, the guy just wants out of the contract. You want to buy out your own contract. You don't want to be traded, and both parties agree that. Well, the team, that player is whatever that number is. If it's in the first 2 years of that contract, that could be, say, half of it's 120 million, say it's 60. Then that'll go down. It'll go down 40, and then it'll go down to 35. Then it'll go down to practically nothing. That's the same thing in dead cap. If a team cuts a player when they're like in the last year of the dead cap, it's usually a low number. But if you're in the second or third year of a 5-year contract, it's usually the highest number. That's all I'm saying. So you give the players an option. You give the players that option. Say, okay, if you want out of this contract, your buyout number is huge the first few years. But in year 3 of a 5-year contract, if you could choose to fire us, you should be able to. They are independent contractors. How hard is that? I mean, if you're that miserable, this is you just take that hit, you pay that back, and whatever new team this player goes to, they got to pay that money back to the old team. And then they have to pay the new contract to the player. So the idea is to discourage that type of movement. Now, there's a few other things about Houston. Now, they've got this guy's rights for essentially 4 more years. So this if they really wanted to dig in, they could find him practically all the money in his contract. If he didn't show up, no camps, no nothing. They can hold his rights for 4 years. So there's nothing really that can be done. And that would be great for the owners. That would be great for players in the future not to pull this. But I do not think it's right. I do think if a guy wants out so bad, we can always quit a job and not have any kind of clauses. But there's a penalty. There's a penalty if the team cuts a player, but the team can cut the player. It's not like the player has the team hostage. You pay the financial penalty, and then you move on. So if Deshaun Watson, under this new agreement, he would he'd give up half that contract. If the second year, when the big chunk comes in, and then it'll go down, and then it'll go down, and it'll be like towards the 4th year of a 5-year deal. It would be no. Yeah, you get to flex it out. You can buy out the contract. And I think that makes everybody happy. We're all adults. It's not going to fall apart. I don't think the world's going to come to an end. The first contract, because the league, the business model for the NFL should stay the same. You draft the player, you own his rights. If I'm player X, I'm so happy to go in the NFL. I'm going from a dorm room to a mansion if I want it, even if I'm drafted late, right? So they own my rights, but in that second contract and on, the player should have the right to buy out their own contract. I thought that was brilliant, So anyways, so Alex Smith, he takes the guy's teammate, Deshaun Watson's teammate, 2 year, $31 million, 23 total guaranteed. Now, I don't know exactly what the guarantee was for a proposal for the other teams, Yeah, now you're saying something, Pickles, about that. He can't set out a year. They still got his rights for 3 or 4 years, So that would not be good. I mean, if he had to say, I don't know if the NFL would want to do that. Now, the local media, the national media would pound this Houston team. They would really harass them. I think they would fold, but it would look good. It would look good. Now, if you're drafted, that's totally different. You can go back in the draft, yeah. But moving on, J.J. Watt signs this 2 year, $31 million guaranteed. Part of the sales was he's going to play with Vance Joseph. He will be assigned Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones leads the NFL in sacks since being drafted 5 years ago. So that's part of the guys like Budda Baker. It makes him look a lot better. Their defense will be hawking. That being said, I mean, most would say you're predicted to finish third or fourth in your division. Other than Zach Taylor and Vic Fangio, Zach Taylor of Cincinnati and Vic Fangio, the head coach of Denver, you would think that Cliff Kingsbury is on the hot seat. So I don't know why he would want to do it, other than it's about $3 or $4 million more than he made before, and it's a good little place to retire. Winning was not number one. If winning was number one, it would be Cleveland, Buffalo. Buffalo is a running game and maybe a linebacker and a pass rush away from winning the whole thing. They've got the passing, they've got the quarterback play, they got the offense. They're not too bad on the back end. You can make an argument. Buffalo's cornerbacks were better than Tampa, who won the Super Bowl. So J.J. Watt, he could have went the West. J.J. Watt's made over $100 million plus. And some of the knock on J.J. Watt is J.J. Watt hasn't finished the season in 5 years. He has not finished the season in 5 years. Another criticism, he gets injured. So, I mean, he's probably good for 14 games maybe. We'll have a 17-game season next year. So, go figure. He's good for that. And another knock on him, he likes to freelance. Coaches that are really assignment-based, they're not going to put up with that. Even out of a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He likes to freelance. In other words, he doesn't like to do the set that's called in the huddle. He doesn't like to play in his lanes. He likes to freelance or run around, and sometimes he gets out of place. And you've seen a lot of that last year. This team got ran on and thrown on like nobody's business. So he takes this money, goes and plays with the former DC. Now, him playing with Chandler Jones, yeah, they're going to wreak havoc in that conference on a guy like Russell Wilson, But the flip side is if they do get hurt, which is, and I'll say you this, if Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, not Kyler Murray, he's the quarterback, but Kingsbury don't find a way to run the football with the running back, Murray's going to get hurt, and this guy will be fired. Why, as long as he gets his $23 million guarantee, I don't think he really cares. He just don't really care. But this team, you know, with the third wild card, they could finish last in the division and make the playoffs. You know, it's going to be a very strong division. Most will probably pick right now. I would probably say maybe the Rams. I want to see what San Francisco is going to do. Seattle be a wild card. You get 3 wild cards, and you've got it's unlikely. It's unlikely, but you could say that logically, you could have 3 wild cards in the division winner and everybody make the playoffs in the West. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see how the rest of it plays out. But what is I would have went to Cleveland or Buffalo. You know, Tennessee's a Southern team. He could have played for Tennessee with his former coach Mike Vrabel. They could have, brought in some more players around him. So winning wasn't number one. When you go to a team like Arizona, you could sell Chandler Jones and everything, but the main reason is it was just the money. It had to be the money. It goes a lot farther in Arizona than it does in one of these bigger markets. And maybe the wife had something to do with it, that he figured that he wouldn't be pushed too hard with the Vance Joseph. So that's my thoughts on what it was really disappointing. The guy really seems to be more into building brands and all that stuff. Okay, Alex Smith. Alex Smith will be released from Washington. Alex Smith had a GQ interview where he's saying that Washington football team did not want him playing for them. He kind of hinted at the fact that they kept him around for sentimental purposes because of the broken leg and the gruesome injury, that the new coaching staff really wanted to shine a light on Cal Allen, and they were worried about Hopkins being on his last leg. It sounds like Ron Rivera was never really did I say Hopkins? Yeah, the rookie there they brought in out of Ohio State. And, of course, Cal Allen gets hurt. The other guy, Haskins, Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins underachieves. Don't think Ron Rivera's a big Dwayne Haskins guy. Cal Allen gets a pretty bad injury, kind of like not as bad as Alex Smith, but he got an injury like an Alex Smith. And so Alex Smith comes in there and plays pretty well. And now he wants a starting job. So he said this. Of course, they cut him. So now, Tyler Heineke, they picked him up. That's another success story. Now they signed him to a year, $8 million. So now Washington is number one of those teams we got to watch out for in free agency. And we've got to watch out for in the draft. Now they're drafting. They made the playoffs. They're going to be drafting in the 20s. Could they move some players and move up? We'll see how that plays out. Now they're going to be in that mix for quarterback now. They're probably going to they may take a Kyle Trask in a second round, the quarterback from Florida. Most mock drafts do not have Kyle Trask going in the first round. Maybe he's that 6th first-round quarterback. Keep an eye out for him possibly going to Washington in that late first-round pick. As far as Alex Smith is concerned, he's a great guy, great story. He's not as fast as he used to be. Cannot get away, cannot get out of the pocket. Very smart, cerebral. You have to have him on a good offensive line. You have to have him with a head coach or an offensive coordinator that likes the screen game. Charlie Checkdown, great for fantasy pickles. Great for fantasy Carlos. So Alex Smith, maybe a Chicago Bears, maybe a Denver. Maybe Denver there, possibly something like that. We'll see. With Denver's quarterback, we all know they're going to try to move on from him. They want to work out something with Houston. Watson mentioned about him wanting to maybe play at Denver at one point. Drew Lock, Denver's out on him. So he'll be brought in as a backup to compete. And this guy works hard. He may fall into a spot where he is working with somebody gets hurt. They underachieve in camp. And Alex Smith is the starting quarterback. I do not think you can build a franchise around him. I think he's a stopgap. He's a backup. Stopgap means 1 year guy until you get the guy in, kind of like what happened in San Francisco with the quarterback there years ago. And, of course, like in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, So he's a backup stopgap. Yeah, Cam may be a stopgap too. We'll see. I still think that Cam may go back to New England and play there. Maybe they draft the Mac Jones, and the coach Belichick may not feel like he's ready yet, and he'll put Cam Newton. There's going to be, by the way, Kyle Rudolph was cut today at tight end. There was a lot of big cuts today. Calvin Noy. This is the time of year, guys, where if you are a smart GM, if you play your cards right, you can get good value players. You can get a guy like a Cal Van Noy from the Miami Dolphins, who's 29 years old. He's third, according to Pro Football Focus, in pressures to the quarterback. He's third in all the NFL in most pressures to the quarterback, quickest pressure to the quarterback. So you say, why did they cut him? Well, Cal Van Noy, the linebacker out of Miami, first year in a 4-year deal from New England, of course. Brian Flores, former defensive coordinator, now head coach at Miami, brought over former New England Patriot. The bad write-up on him is, for example, he's given up 110 quarterback rating when in coverage. So he can't cover that well. And he's like 20 to 26th against the run. They're going to, Ed Rappaport said they may try to trade him. But once you've already said that you're going to cut the guy, why give up a pick for him, So I think a team like Tennessee will pick him up. Mike Vrabel bring back a pass rusher. Tennessee's got a pretty good linebacking core that can help him out on those flaws in the running game. But this is where you make your bones. You get guys that maybe go back to New England, play with Hightower up there. New England get them at the price they want, and Tennessee get them at the price they want him. Miami still has to pay him some of that guaranteed money, but Miami's saving money. So the J.J. Watt thing leads to Miami, some speculation, according to Miami Herald, that the reason why Van Noy was cut is because this pass rusher that's coming into a contract year from Arizona, this guy named Hassan Reddick, he's 26 years old, and Miami's going to clear up over right around $10 million in cap space to get a younger, more athletic, better cover guy in the flat. This is a league about tight ends. Colin Coward was saying Kyle Pitts is maybe better most wide receivers is what scouts are telling him. He's going to be the rookie tight end out of Florida. It's going to get drafted really high. But anyways, going back to Van Noy, so this is the chain reaction from the J.J. Watt stuff, okay? Van Noy, so they're going after this Hassan Reddick guy since Watt's already filled a void in less years for Arizona. So now Van Noy is going to get cut. Like I said, Rudolph. There's a player out of Jacksonville, another tight end. He was cut. Used to play with Cincinnati. Really good player. Somebody like New England will go after him. There's good players out here. This is where if you want to build your organization, if you're a fan of a team, you get great players who may be a cap casualty, but they still got some left in the tank. This is where you bargain hunt right here. Tyler Eifert. Thank you, Pickles. Thank you. Tyler Eifert, good hands, still in his early 30s. Team like New England with the Cam Newton would love to get their hands on this guy. A lot of teams like this 2 tight end set thing. That guy's got big, soft hands, playing with bad quarterbacks. I would love to see him play with a pretty good quarterback. Maybe Tennessee. Jonnu Smith, I believe, is a free agent tight end from Tennessee. He may want too much money. You see what I'm saying? So, anyways, those are a few things. The Ravens. Okay, so there was a story out going around the league, the NFL. The Baltimore Ravens, Eric DeCosta, this is out of ESPN, says, will not pursue number 1 wide receiver Allen Robinson nor Detroit's Kenny Galladay, 2 of the higher-ranking, higher-end, especially Allen Robinson, wide receiver free agents. It said that Eric DeCosta, the general manager from the Ravens, which you guys know how I feel about the Ravens. They're really good at doing the right thing with the cap. That's why they're always where they are. And I'll read that stat here in just a minute. They're looking to replace a Hayden Hurst to pair him with the Mark Andrews. But you know something? There's 2 things here. Baltimore was dead last in wide receiver production, according to Pro Football Focus. So, anyways, I had a screenshot of this of teams with the highest winner percentage in the last 20 years. And you guys will not believe this. If I can find it, I hit a bunch of screenshots here. Okay. NFL teams, stats, winning percentage, playoff appearances since the last 20 years. We know New England's number 1. New England, Pittsburgh, Green Bay's number 3, 4's the Colts, 5's Baltimore Ravens. What did they have in common other than maybe a Reggie Wayne? None of these teams had big, high-paying wide receivers on there. Again, since the last 20 years, Super Bowl playoff appearances, Super Bowl wins, consistent most playoff appearances. New England was 17. Pittsburgh 13, 15 and 15 by Ravens and the Colts. Quarterback protection, blitz on the other quarterback. Now, you got to say Reggie Wayne. He was a pretty high pay. Yeah? Well, the Colts lost a lot of playoff games because they couldn't stop the run. The only year that they could stop the run, remember, Pickles, that really good safety they had out of Iowa, once they got him healthy and they had a running game with Joseph Adai, I can't remember that safety's name, Pickles, you'll probably be able to recall it. That's the year that they stopped the run. You remember that guy, really small guy out of Iowa that helped out with the Colts, Pickles? But we know the Ravens have won 2 Super Bowls in that 20-year period. One of them purely off defense. No, and you say, well, what about Anquan Bolden? Anquan Bolden in 2012 and 13 was on his 3rd contract. You see what I'm saying? Don't pay these wide receivers a lot of money. You rarely running backs and wide receivers. Now you say, what about Pittsburgh? They got a lot of wide receivers. No, Pittsburgh drafts wide receivers. Plexico Burress left Pittsburgh in free agency, did go to the Giants, and they won. But Plexico Burress was not the reason they won it. Their front 4 and Eli's clean pocket and great throws was the reason that they won that Super Bowl against the greatest team. And ironically, they were more offensively driven, the Patriots, the year they won the Super Bowl. Hold on, everybody. Let me change out my – let's see. Okay, now we're back. All right. So, anyways – Make sure we are still recording there. Yep. Okay. I had to straighten out my little podcast thing. So the Ravens got that. See, they don't think they don't think Lamar Jackson, who I think is going to be a major bust if you pay this guy money. And another thing, they don't value that position. They'll probably draft a guy at a wide receiver. My thing is, you say, what about Green Bay? What about Green Bay? Devontae Adams is on there now. Once you pay a wide receiver $20+ million and you pay your quarterback over 30, you don't win Super Bowls. The data don't lie. The data don't lie. Only way that works out, if you got a quarterback, if you pay a wide receiver a lot of money, you got to have your quarterback on a rookie contract. That's why I think the Jets need to roll the dice and just draft that guy out of BYU, because they've only got one more year of quarterback pay for Sam Darnold. But the Ravens, they are 5th in most of playoff appearances since in 20 years. Ravens, Colts, Packers are everything on the – Packers can't get a free agent to come there. Packers are 3rd. They are 3rd because they protect their quarterbacks, and then they have to draft their defenses, you know. So, again, the top 5 teams in the last 20 years, New England, of course, Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Indianapolis, Baltimore Ravens. I'm surprised Baltimore didn't go further. I would put Baltimore over the Colts. They've won 2 Super Bowls. The Colts didn't. So that's a little food for thought, little news and notes there, tidbit. On a serious note, I should have covered this story early, but I didn't. And I want to talk about it now, earlier in tonight's program. Okay, Brett Reed. I don't know if you guys heard it. It's a sad story out of the Kansas City area. Britt Reed is the son of Andy Reid. The week of the Super Bowl, he had a car accident. There's a 5-year-old with according to ESPN and all news reports that this 5-year-old that was hit by Brett Reed likely to have brain damage, you know. And Reed admitted to having 2 to 3 drinks and had taken Adderall medication. And, you know, I know this is a sad story. It looks worse because this is Reed's son. And, you know, guys, I listen to sports talk radio. I can't tell you. I'm almost ashamed to admit how much sports talk radio I listen to. And the thing about this is it looks worse because it's his son. And the nepotism problem in the NFL, which is sons playing for teams, is in pro sports is out of control. And by the way, yeah, so basically this guy is probably going to do some serious jail time. The lawyer's pressing that. I'm sure there's going to be a serious lawsuit. A lot of money. I'm sure Andy Reid's under a lot of pressure right now, especially since it looks worse because it's his son. Well, we know about the drug issues with the other son and the overdoses. I'm very sorry to hear about that. But my thing is, part of Russell Wilson's issue with Pete Carroll is his sons are with him. You know, he's hired his sons with Seattle. And Pickles, I don't know if you recall, the main reason Jeff Fisher with the Tennessee Titans was fired by Bud Adams was Fisher wanted to bring his son in to coach. This is another thing that the collective bargain agreement should be known. We've got a league that's got the Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule has worked some good things in the NFL. Is nepotism? It's bad optics, guys. It looks bad. It doesn't look good public relation. Now, what if you're saying, well, hey, man, what if I'm so-and-so's son and I'm the best guy for the job? The rule around the league should be if you are the head coach, if you are coaching, you cannot hire a relative to your squad. I'm sorry. Somebody else will have to do it. It just doesn't look right in the league that's trying to practice the Rooney Rule. And not just that, it's the nepotism issue. Like I said, Brian Schottenheimer's quick story. He's the son of the late great Marty Schottenheimer. So I'm watching the Jets in Hard Knocks, guys. You remember this? This was a few years ago, back when they were on Hard Knocks, and I remember him putting his foot up on a chair, Brian Schottenheimer, hollering at these wide receivers, and I thought to myself, as soon as I heard that name, I said, I totally lost respect for the Jets. Because you hiring this guy off of a name, and you could tell them players don't respect that, see? Even though he might be qualified for the job. That is it just don't look good, guys. Now, of course, Schottenheimer wasn't playing for his dad, but I'm just saying that came over me. And plus, by the way, in the NBA, Ryan Saunders was 43-94. That was Flip Saunders, the late great Minnesota Timberwolves son. They hired his son, and he got fired last week or week before. 3 seasons in, 43-94. That was terrible. He was 7 wins this year. He was like 7-23. That was a nepotism hire, And the NFL smart. They should get it right. They always seem to get it right. So my thing is, for today, 2 things. You cannot hire your son on an NFL team. I don't care how good a coordinator he is. You cannot hire any relatives on your son. If you get caught doing that, it's draft picks, it's penalties, just like it is from any other violation. Number 2, my second thought of the day. If you are a player drafted in the NFL and you have went through your first contract, your second contract, you get the option to buy the contract out, just like the team gets the option to cut you and take the dead money. So those are my 2 big things of the night as far as the NFL. This Brett Reed thing wouldn't look nowhere near as bad if it wasn't the son working under. This guy's had a history. He said he'd done 2 to 3 drinks and he's on Adderall, and just looks bad. I hope it don't come down on Andy Reid's health, but it looks the optics of hired family. Like I said, it's going into the Seattle Seahawks. Pete Carroll, according to The Athletic. Russell Wilson said receivers coach Nate Carroll, Pete's son, briefly stepped away from the job in frustration over his role. He said he made his unhappiness known to the players. Russell and those around him believe Carroll's sons answer to no one. Nepotism. They may be great, but it's the perception is reality sometimes, folks. Perception is reality. So, got to do away with the sons hiring the coaches. Okay. Let's see. I've got a few more things here. I'm trying to. Okay, so NFL, all the news has been breaking. Next year, we're going to have 17 weeks. I'm okay with that. I've always said that if you're going to do that, make sure you got plenty of bye weeks lined up. I would love for the season to go into President's Day. When's President's Day? Around the 17th of February. You want to push that. You want to push those months back as a fan. And plus, the players, they're going to be mad at first, but they're going to get an extra game payday. They'll love it. You get that dead zone filled up. That dead zone is the month of February and what is the other one? July. Driest, crappiest months in the sports world. Hate February and July. February and July, again, Pickles, Carlos, if you're there on the other one. My ideal situation would be just like that, maybe go up to 18, maybe push it back in February. But the NBA should start around like they did this year, Christmas Day. The NBA should go the fight like this year into July. The baseball season can start around April 1st. The baseball season, Major League Baseball, and at the end of July, that's when the regular season ends. And then the playoffs start August 1st. The World Series would be on Labor Day weekend. What's Labor Day weekend? Labor Day weekend's the start of college football. A week later, the NFL starts. So you don't have those big droughts and depression like we have got, in February. Us sports fans, we get the blues. And then in the other months, the downtime there, you can slide in, Pickles, the Daytona 500 the week after the Super Bowl. You push the combine, which is players coming in. You could push that to, 2 weeks after the Super Bowl. You could push the free agency up. I mean, there's a lot of ways to work this out. But you want to have NBA finals in July. You want to have baseball pennant races in July. This whole myth about this old school way of thinking about, July people's on vacations. Again, I'm a big Netflix guy now. Stranger Things set records a couple of Julys ago when they put their series on the 4th of July. They set records, the new season. Remember that a couple of years ago, guys? Stranger Things set records. So if you put a great football game, do you guys remember a few years ago, not this past year, we had COVID, you just write off everything. 2019, the Miami Hurricanes and the Florida Gators in football, they played a week before Labor Day. It was 1,000 degrees outside. But it was one of the highest rated games of the season because it was a standalone game. It was a week before Labor Day weekend. It was a week ahead of time. And they had great ratings. Executives in TV, listen to the audience, man. We're thirsty for content the month of February and the month of July. Just food for thought. Okay? Switching gears here. Looks like Mike Tyson said he wants to boycott. He tells everybody he wants to boycott Hulu from streaming a program about him that talks about his all of his rape conviction, domestic abuse issues with Robin Givens. And of course, he can't sue for that. So, and I think he wants to be compensated. Personally, I think you should compensate a guy. But I went to school for communications. I got a media background. I know the media law. Now, the law says Mike Tyson's a public figure. Those are all news stories. In other words, you can't pay a guy for breaking the news. You're a public figure. You're a public figure. So, and Tyson's came a long way. He's got himself back on his feet financially. He's got these this Roy Jones Jr. exhibition fight that went on last month. And he's supposedly going to fight Holyfield, and a date hasn't been set, in the expedition. And he owns the rights to all this stuff for $20 million. That's been rumored. So basically what this is this man, and he's going to put out another documentary that's going to, go against the one on Hulu. Makes you want to watch the Hulu one now, right? Especially with that critical documentary of Woody Allen, Pickles, and Mia Farrow. That's a pretty crazy one to say the least. I've been watching that one, Pickles, on HBO. But anyways, if I'm Tyson, Mike, if you watch, and some of the pro athletes watch SportsSkope, look at the documentary as a way to promote your brand, man. We all know what happened. I think there's too much exposure of Mike Tyson now. The guy's I seen a movie in the 90s about him. He made a movie about himself that narrated. Then he did a stand-up like Broadway act thing about it. There's been a lot of little documentaries here and there about him. So he's been in movies, comedies. He was in The Hangover. He's pretty funny in that. But so he's rebounded nicely. Everybody likes a comeback story. We all know about what happened. Was it Indiana with the girl there? The rape thing. We saw all his blow-ups on TV with news reporters and cursing them out. Look at this, Mike, as an opportunity to promote your brand. Quite frankly, I kind of regret not ordering that Roy Jones Jr. fight. I know it was a draw, but the other fight that led up to it with that YouTube star, Jake Paul, or I think it's maybe his son, the other Paul, his brother, excuse me, that was a YouTube guy, and Nate Robertson. Guy knocks out Nate Robertson. Guy was really focused. Had another fight under his belt. I kind of wish I would have saw that. So if he fights Evander Holyfield, I may pay the money to see it. Now, it's not going to be as good as any of the Tyson Fury fights. Ironically, the heavyweight champion who was named after this guy was born in 1988, and he's named after Mike Tyson. And now he becomes champion in 2020 last year in February. Great fight. I think he's going to rematch that sometime here in the near future with Deontay Wilder. In other news, not to pat myself on the back, Carlos, I don't know if you're watching from New York City. Mac and Jack, you guys are out of New York City area. I was one of the only people that said Tom Thibodeau with young players would work. And the Knicks have the best record since 2012. This would be the first time they're going to host a home game if the playoffs were today. It's a great story about a guy that was fired from a Minnesota job because they gave him too much authority. He couldn't handle the general manager duties and coaching duties. He was let go from Chicago because they had injuries. I remember Derrick Rose towards the end couldn't stay healthy. Now, he's brought him in at a discounted rate. He's got these young players playing hard. I was watching a piece of the Knicks game the other day, and when one player has the ball, everybody else is not standing around. Everybody's in motion. The whole offense is in motion. Julius Randle made the all-star team, playing really well. This guy's only 27, 28. He's one of those one-and-done guys. Came out of Kentucky, a very good pickup. Carlos, I know you said you didn't want him to take a 28-year-old Bradley Beal. As long as if I bring in a free agent, if I'm a Knicks fan, you want the message to be known that, hey, we want to win here. We're all buying in, young and old. They got Derrick Rose, Julius Randle. Those are veterans. R.J. Barrett, Knox. Those are all young guys. Emmanuel, what's that, Quickly or whatever, a guy named after Nestle Quick. He's a young player, but he's playing really hard, and they're great. He may win Coach of the Year, possibly. So they're talking about this guy may win Coach of the Year. Brooklyn's a nice story. I mean, reading about possible favorites to win the MVP. New York City, you guys have snapped out of your funk. Brooklyn's in second place now? James Harden's got a shot to win the MVP this year. James Harden, a guy who came in to Houston out of shape, god-awful attitude, god-awful, looked awful, played awful, sounded awful, bad vibes, gets traded to this Brooklyn team. Now he leads the league in average assists per game. And the last I read, he is second or third in MVP odds to win the MVP. I want to say that LeBron's first this year. And I think the guy from Dallas is in there. Kawhi Leonard's in there. Giannis is in there. Giannis has won it twice. Don't think they're going to win it this year. So James Harden may win the MVP this year. If they get the best record in the league, yeah, he's got a shot to win an MVP this year. And like I told you guys the other day, And I talked about this on the Mac and Jack. By the way, check out Northeast Streaming Sports. You can find SportsSkope there. They're having a special this week, a boxing Ali Frazier reunion type of show. That's an anniversary show. I won't be on that show, but I'll be watching Northeast Streaming Sports, guys. But I was telling them that these guys can win this year. The Brooklyn Nets are a year younger than the big three in Boston. They're the big three in Boston when they won it in 2008. Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen, they were 1 year together. 1 year. I don't think, I believe Durant's going to come back after the All-Star break, which is, I think, in another week or so, right? And because I know the trade deadline's pulled back to the 25th, but that's the deadline. That doesn't mean that people can't get traded before that. Carl Anthony Towns, watch SportsSkope. So they have a shot to win the whole thing this year. Tom Thibodeau has a clean shot at Coach of the Year if they can stay in that 4 range, the 4-5, 3-4-5 range for the Knicks. And the West is wide open. The West is wide open. It looks like Dallas is starting to come to life here. LA may be getting their legs back. Who knows? Players got to come back. We'll see what Anthony Davis comes back. Utah's still playing the best basketball in the league, shooting the 3-ball well, playing great defense with Rudy Gobert and that bunch there. I still say if they win it all, the Donovan Mitchell and the Shaq exchange will be played over and over again. And Shaq would probably be happy because he said, well, I wanted to motivate the kids. So anyways, those are my thoughts on the NBA this week coming up, everybody. I went through everything. Yeah, 17th week. Tom Thibodeau. Looks like we got it covered, and we're at 52 minutes, everybody. Please share my show, like my show, download the podcast so I get, if you guys give me so many downloads, I get paid for my podcast from Spotify. So please download SportsSkope. Working on sponsor. If you want to sponsor, contact me on my Facebook page or email me, SportsSkope, SKOPE, SportsSkope@gmail.com, okay? And check out the Mac and Jack Sports Show, Northeast Streaming Sports. You can find them on YouTube. Northeast Streaming Sports. Look them up. You can see SportsSkope there and some of the other shows that we will have. I will see you guys alternate. Thank you. I will see you guys on Thursday around 9 p.m. Central Time. Deshaun Watson may get traded by them. We'll be talking about that. And whatever else news is breaking. Maybe Sam Darnold's a Chicago Bear. So it's a lot to think about. So have a good night, everybody. I will see you Thursday here on SportsSkope. Thanks. Thank you, StreamYard. Butler. Going to talk about this